In 221 BC, the legalist Qin Dynasty unified China from the west, ending a centuries-long period of incessant warfare that we know as the Warring States era. But only 14 years later, in 207 BC, it all seems to be in ashes. From the chaos, a brief war known as the Chu-Han Contention erupts between two men to decide who will rule the empire and how. On one side is Xiang Yu of the Chu, warrior and general, hegemon of Western Chu. Rulers of the 18 feudal dukedoms he has put into place have pledged allegiance to him. He is at the head of the largest army and resides in verdant Pengcheng. On the other side is Liu Bang of the Han, a peasant and former lowly constable, a man with no name. He and his smaller band of loyal soldiers reside in Bashu, a distant region cut off from the powerful eastern states. By all logic, the warrior king should have won. But he didn't. Liu Bang's victory wasn't an accident. It was the result of two visions, two ways of viewing people, empire and war. This is the elite theory of why Liu Bang won. And we shall now encounter the roots and story of two very different men, backgrounds and responses to events. Xiang Yu is born in 232 BC, pre-Qin unification, which happened in 221 BC. The Xiang family were held in high prestige in the Chu court as generals. But in 223 BC, the state was plunged into a war of resistance against the Qin invasion. At the age of 9, Xiang Yu witnessed the death of his own grandfather fighting this invasion. Imagine the resentment the young Xiang Yu may have felt. What did he care of the Qin dynasty's intention to unify the peoples and end the wars? And it's this resentment felt by all the former elites of the conquered kingdoms that he would come to represent. Under the steely-willed Qin Shi Huang, his noble family was defanged. They had their swords removed, and they saw the humiliation of their Chu royal family sent off to Xianyang, the capital of Qin dynasty, out in the northwest, to split them off from their local power base. The Xiang family, once respected generals, were driven underground and kept their heads low, biding their time to fulfill their vision of seeing Chu restored once more. His uncle Xianyang still held hopes of seeing Chu restored in his lifetime, but knew that the time wasn't right, wisely holding back his nephew, who itched to feel a sword in his hands. Finally, in 210 BC, with the death of Qin Shi Huang and an unmeritocratic usurpation of the rightful, capable ruler Fu Shu, passed over to the less capable puppet Qin Shi by the eunuch Zhao Gao, Xianyang could now see that the time was right. And as his nephew Xiang Yu's actions would come to show, his driving force was a negative vision, pure cathartic vengeance. Liu Bang, meanwhile, was constantly building. A pragmatist with no glorious past, his rebellion began with survival. As a constable, it was his task to escort convict labour to the capital. Delayed on this long march, and realising that this was punishable under Qin law, his first act was to rebel and offer convicts a choice. Join him on Mount Mangdang in the wilds, where he would protect them, or leave and fend for yourselves. This created a loyal band from nothing. Around this time he started to work with Xiaohe, magistrate of the former Qin state, who would become his eventual interior minister. His positive vision was at first very simple. To simply protect himself and his friends, and survive. A pragmatist who merely fought to survive, eventually to rule. Liu Bang and his small rebellion, desperate for allies and fighting for their lives in the wilds of Mount Mangdang, find a friend in the powerful Xiang family. They share a common enemy, and the two fight together against a small force of the Qin dynasty at the Battle of Dingtao. It was here that Xiang Yu's uncle Xianyang, who had overseen his vulnerable childhood, passes away, And at this key moment in history, Liu Bang pledges his allegiance to the vulnerable Xiang Yu, who seems to have gained himself a real friend. And it is right here that Xianyang, an aristocrat of the former Han state, whose ancestors served 3 generations of the Han Dynasty ruling family as chancellors, comes to Liu Bang's side as an advisor. Now, despite the various rebellions and incompetent leadership, many still fight for the Qin dynasty. There will still be people like this, who will be willing to cling to a falling order for a variety of reasons. Misplaced loyalty, fear of change, or because loyalty, their elevated statuses depend upon its continued existence. People like the manipulative eunuch Zhao Gao would prefer to prop up the current system because its very existence guarantees him his riches. Therefore, no matter the awfulness of the current regime, detested by blue bloods of the former kingdoms and rebellious peasants like Liu Bang alike, a rump of the former regime will still carry the principle of legitimacy if they are not removed. So, is it Liu Bang and his loyal band of friends and a growing number of elites which clears out this rump of the dynasty? No, it cannot be. Not only is his army too small, he doesn't hold popular sway over the people just yet. After all, Xiang Yu is a man from prestigious, well-known line who can rally men to his name alone. Also, from this time onwards, Liu Bang must start to project a reputation for restraint and clemency. He is, in fact, the first person to get to Xianyang, the capital of the Qin dynasty. While Xiang Yu pursues the Qin army to Julu, Liu Bang flanks the enemy to get to the exposed capital. This is the first test of Liu Bang's vision. Is he motivated by vengeance, or does he want to build? Liu Bang arrives in 206 BC. The city was his for the taking, and with an army at his back, he could have done anything. Right at this instant, his elite network pays off. He listens to the advisor Xianyang. Instead of sacking the city and gaining plunder from it, the expected vengeful act, Liu Bang seals the treasury and the palace and issued laws to protect the people, forbidding robbing and looting. This wasn't just mercy, this was a strategic masterstroke. He was wooing the Qin heartland's administrative elite, presenting himself as an heir to the order, not a bringer of chaos. At the very same time, when Liu Bang is winning hearts and minds, Xiang Yu is distracted by a chance to fight and pursues the Qin forces under Jian Han to the fateful Battle of Julu. Xiang Yu burns the boats they used to cross the river with the main forces of Chu, ensuring there was no turning back. He wasn't just defeating the Qin army, he was slaughtering the instrument of his state's humiliation. Remember that 9-year-old boy who would have remembered the glory days of his family, brought so low by the enemy. This enemy. He goes into battle, 70,000 of his own soldiers against approximately 200,000 of Jiang Han. After this victory, it was said that Xiang Yu buried alive a further 200,000 captured Qin soldiers in a deep ravine. Now, I'm not sure whether I believe this, but if so, his purpose in doing this is to unknowingly clear the forest, burn the old growth out. As such, he had no need to draw on anything but lion-like warriors to him. And this is just what he did. His most avid followers were people like Ying Bu, a man of brutish reputation who had been a leader of bandits. Even in spite of having capable advisors like Fan Zeng, there is even a phrase named after this phenomenon of having great advisors but not using them. He even sidelined a high-potential unknown man who would become Liu Bang's supreme general. All of this goes to show Xiang Yu was truly a man of passion, righteousness, but of limited vision. Now, the example of burying the soldiers alive might be hard to believe and perhaps propaganda written by Han historians, But what he does next is solidly evidenced. Weeks later, Xiang Yu arrived in Xianyang after the victory at the Battle of Gaixia to find an orderly city. Liu Bang and his main forces had moved away from the capital, deferring to the larger force of the man he'd sworn allegiance to. Unlike Liu Bang, Xiang Yu sacks Xianyang, burned the palaces, and executed many of the Qin royal family. Now, this is when much of the destruction of literature occurs, which is often attributed to Qin Shi Huang. We have evidence of the capital being burned down, former palaces being lost at this time. Now, he gave the nobles of the conquered states the vengeance they craved, but in doing so, he alienated the very people he needed to run an empire. Liu Bang built political capital where Xiang Yu spent it on revenge. Victorious Xiang Yu makes his fateful choice. He carved the empire into 18 kingdoms, making loyal followers of himself dukes of them, crowning himself hegemon king, and retreated east to his homeland of Chu and Pengcheng. He had restored the old world of pre-unification. His mission was complete. What need he of any more? He had his beloved Chu back, despite advice to the contrary, telling him, no, he has the seat of power and the place from which to run it, Xianyang, from which the empire was unified. He refuses to take it up. What to do with Liu Bang, though? He exiles Liu Bang and his followers to the remote Bashu region, thinking it a death sentence. He was wrong. It was a gift. Bashu is modern-day Sichuan, a fertile region of double harvests in 1 year, and a defensible base surrounded by mountain ranges. And here, Liu Bang's ability to pick men of discernment comes into fruition. Xiao He, his old ally from Mount Mangdang and future interior minister, brings to his attention a defector from Xiang Yu. The brilliant General Han Xin, who was another minor noble of the former Han state, was humiliated as a lowly guard by Xiang Yu. Liu Bang, though, identifies his genius and makes him, as the ultimate delegator himself, supreme commander. Xiang Yu, the lion, began to even distrust himself. He dismissed his wise old uncle Fang Zeng for a simple rumour spread by an agent of Liu Bang. With his allies leaving him, the war climaxes at the Battle of Gaixia. Liu Bang's coalition, led by Han Xin, surrounded Xiang Yu, ground him down for months and months. Low on supplies, Xiang Yu heads south. Hearing the songs of Chu from all sides, they weaponized Xiang Yu's own nostalgia to break his army's spirit, and that's where we get the phrase Sumin Chu Ge from. And this was the place he was said to have been present when his own beloved Yu Ji commits suicide. This is the basis of the famous Beijing opera Baoan Bieji, central to the film Farewell, My Concubine. Xiang Yu then, with nothing left to lose, makes a final glorious charge. He died the beautiful death that he seemed destined for, the final sacrifice of an old vengeful order. And this is the core of the elite theory of Chu-Han Contention. There is the analysis at the temperamental level. It's clear from the records of Sima Qian that Xiang Yu was naturally inclined to explosive physical force, an idealist, a romantic who yearned for a time in the past as a child he would have remembered, when his glorious Chu existed, and how he wished to go back there. At the same time, Liu Bang was a calculated individual, making decisions in light of advisors cooperationally, who is said to have been charismatic but uninterested in learning, a trait shared with Xiang Yu, who was also uninterested in learning. However, Liu Bang gathers to him people who were interested in learning, who were literates, who were highly capable men, whereas Xiang Yu pushes them away. There's their level of interpersonal relationships. While Xiang Yu inspired men of arms to follow by bravery, Liu Bang engendered loyalty via rewarding friends and bringing people into a network of delegation around him at the center. This is the embodiment of the Chinese concept of guanxi, or interrelations, which still lives on to this very day. One man drives energy from a populist restorationist revolt into a destructive force capable of only clearing a path. The other builds under this energy of tight-knit network of highly capable individuals and projects clemency and restraint. But Liu Bang owes his throne to Xiang Yu's necessary sacrifice. Xiang Yu had performed the brutal, negative work that Liu Bang could not afford to do. He soaked the earth with the blood of the Qin, satisfying his own and the nobles' lust for vengeance, clearing the political field. He broke the old machine so completely that people now crave nothing more than stability. Liu Bang, the pragmatist, inherited these ashes. He took the Qin legalist administrative blueprint, its laws, its structure, and advised by his Confucian elites, softened some of its edges, rewarding his friends and punishing his enemies. He didn't make China in Chu's image. He perfected the Qin model and created the enduring Han system, which would last, with a small interregnum, for 400 years. So why did Liu Bang win? Ultimately, Xiang Yu saw power as the sword, something you could wield personally through might, blood and legacy, the perfect instrument of destruction. Liu Bang saw power as the web, something you built through a network of talent, delegated authority and shared interest. He was the architect of a new system, and even at this early stage, just after the Battle of Gaixia, Liu Bang builds Weiyang Palace. It's completed in around 200 BC. It serves as the administrative center of Western Han, the Qin dynasty, the Eastern Han dynasty, and all the dynasties up to the Sui dynasty in 600 AD. 800 years later. Talk about leaving a legacy. The lone aristocrat, for all his brilliance, was defeated by the peasant who understood the fundamental truth of empire, that the throne is not held by the strongest hero in the center, but by the quality of the elites bound to it. Xiang Yu's destiny was to be the glorious, necessary fire, and Liu Bang's genius was to rise from the warmth of its ashes.